Tell me if this sounds familiar. You wake up already tense, already late, already failing at a day that hasn't even started. You move fast, not because you want to, but because something deep in your chest whispers, if you slow down, everything will fall apart. You rush through meals, through rest, through conversations, through your own healing, like life is a race you're somehow losing, and you don't even know who you're trying to catch. Here's the part nobody tells you. You don't feel behind because you are behind. You feel behind because your nervous system never learned what safety feels like. You learn to run before you learn to walk. Because in survival homes, slowness was dangerous, stillness was suspicious, rest was guilt, and being caught up was never an option. The goalposts were always moving. So now, even as an adult, even on a calm morning with no deadline, no crisis, no threat, your body still whispers, "Hurry." Alan Watts said, "We are always preparing for life, never living it." But nobody taught you how to be here. They only taught you how to keep up. And that's why you panic when nothing is happening. You feel guilty when you're not productive. You compare your timeline to everyone else's. You live like you're late to your own existence. Your body doesn't understand peace yet. It only understands pace. And that pace was set by fear. If you've ever asked, why do I feel like I'm always running out of time? Why do I always feel late for my own life? Why can't I slow down without feeling like I'm failing? It's not because you're behind. It's because your nervous system thinks urgency is safety. If every part of your life feels like you're trying to catch up, emotionally, financially, mentally, spiritually, you're not broken. You're just still living by rules that danger wrote into your body. Stay with me. The next part explains everything. Here's the part almost nobody connects. Your relationship with time wasn't shaped by adulthood. It was shaped by the emotional climate of the home you grew up in, not by clocks, not by calendars, not by society, but by the speed required to stay safe. In unpredictable households, the body learns one rule: move fast or something will go wrong. So urgency becomes instinct, rushing becomes protection, being ahead becomes survival. Look back at your childhood. Did you have to read the room before you walked into it? Did you have to adjust your tone to avoid conflict? Did you become the fixer, the peacekeeper, the achiever just to keep everyone stable? Because in homes where emotions were volatile, inconsistent, or overwhelming, a child learns quickly, if I slow down, I won't be ready for what happens next. And that speed sticks not as memory, as identity. The responsible one, the mature beyond your years, the overachiever, the calm one who keeps the peace. Those weren't personality traits, they were survival roles. Alan Watts once said, "The ego is a pattern of repeated reactions, and urgency is one of those patterns, a loop, a reflex, a child's strategy carried into an adult body. That constant scanning you do, that need to finish everything quickly, that panic when you're not prepared for every possible outcome. That isn't adulthood failing you. That's childhood still running the show. You weren't taught safety. You were taught speed. You weren't taught rest. You were taught readiness. You weren't taught presence. You were taught prediction. That's why even now, with your own home, your own life, your own choices, you still feel like you're racing a clock no one else can see. You don't feel behind because you're behind. You feel behind because, as a child, being ahead was the only way to stay safe. If you grew up anticipating every mood, every consequence, every shift in the room, you're not scattered. You're carrying a pace that danger once wrote into your identity, and it's time to unlearn it. Here's the part that confuses almost everyone. Even when your life becomes safe, your body doesn't automatically get the memo. Because the nervous system doesn't update through logic. It updates through sensation, and your body has spent years, maybe decades, running on high alert. So when you try to slow down, rest, pause, or breathe, your system doesn't interpret that as calm. It interprets it as danger. This is the physiological trap. Rest activates the alarm. Stillness feels unsafe. Slowing down feels like losing control, not because anything is wrong with you, but because your body is still calibrated to the pace of threat. Think about what happens when you finally sit still. Your heart picks up. Your chest tightens. Your thoughts race. You suddenly remember 10 things you should be doing. You feel guilty. You feel exposed. You feel like you're falling behind. That isn't mindset. That isn't personality. That is a nervous system conditioned to equate emotion with safety. Here's the biology. When you've lived in adrenaline for too long, your baseline becomes elevated. Your system gets addicted to the chemicals of urgency. And when the adrenaline drops, your body experiences it as withdrawal. So stillness doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like something is missing, like you're slipping, like something bad is about to happen. That anxious jolt you feel when you rest, that sudden discomfort, that urge to get up, fix something, check something, plan something, that's your nervous system trying to return to the speed it believes is normal. Urgency feels like identity, because tension feels like me. Alan Watts talked about this illusion, how the self becomes confused with its own contractions. He said we often mistake the tightening we do against life for who we actually are. You feel behind, not because of timelines, but because your body only feels real when it's braced. This is why you can relax intellectually, but not physically. Get anxious on calm days. Feel restless during rest. Think better under pressure than peace. Sabotage slow seasons because they feel wrong. Feel more yourself when you're rushing. None of this is psychological failure. It's physiology. A body misreading safety as the unfamiliar sensation it never learned to trust. Your nervous system isn't your enemy. It's just out of date. It's running at the pace of an old threat in a present that no longer requires it. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. If rest feels unsafe, if slowness feels wrong, if calm feels empty, you're not behind. Your body is simply trying to protect you, using settings that no longer match your life. But why does the world constantly reinforce this speed? Let's unpack that how. If your urgency didn't come from childhood alone, society made sure to reinforce it. We live in a culture that worships speed and pathologizes slowness. You're praised for hustling, admired for grinding, celebrated for pushing through, and quietly judged for resting. Our world doesn't ask how you feel. It asks what you've done, what you've achieved, what you've built, what you're working toward next. We were taught that a meaningful life must always be becoming something, always upgrading, always optimizing, always chasing the next milestone, like existence is a ladder you climb endlessly until the day you die. Alan Watts warned about this exact trap. He said, Western culture is obsessed with the constant preparation for living instead of living. We treat life like a project, not an experience. A timeline, not a moment. A performance, not a presence. And then there's social media, the relentless mirror that reflects everyone else's highlight reel back into your nervous system. You're not comparing yourself to real lives. You're comparing yourself to edited timelines. People who bought a house at 25. People who traveled the world. People who have kids, careers, partners, purpose. All by yesterday. You scroll long enough, and it feels like everyone is sprinting past you in a race you didn't agree to run. You internalize it. You feel late, behind, insufficient. But here's the truth, almost no one says out loud. There is no universal timeline. There is no race. There is no catching up. These metrics, the ages, the milestones, the expectations, are not laws of nature. They're inventions, social constructs, marketing tools, cultural scripts passed down without questioning who they serve or why we follow them. Watts called it the illusion of progress, the belief that life is only valuable if it's headed somewhere. But life isn't a straight line. It's not a staircase. It's not a checklist. Life is a dance, a rhythm, a cycle of returning to yourself over and over again. Yet this culture teaches you to abandon the present in the name of a future that never arrives. That's why you feel behind. Not because you're failing, but because you're subscribed to an illusion that no one can actually win. If comparison is draining you, if timelines make you panic, if milestones feel like pressure instead of joy, you're not misaligned with life. You're misaligned with a culture that forgot what life is for. Here's the part no one connects. Your urgency didn't disappear when you hit the milestones. It intensified. Have you noticed that? You finally reached the goal, the job, the body, the degree, the partner, the progress. And instead of feeling grounded, you felt nothing, or worse. You felt anxious again within minutes, like your system quietly whispered, "Okay, what's next?" as if the achievement evaporated the second you touched it. This isn't laziness, and it isn't ambition. It's collapse. Not emotional collapse, reward collapse. Because when you've lived your entire life in urgency, your brain didn't learn to chase joy. It learned to chase relief. The relief of not disappointing someone. The relief of avoiding conflict. The relief of escaping shame. The relief of staying ahead of catastrophe. That's why achievements don't land, because they were never about desire. They were about survival. You weren't running towards something you wanted. You were running away from something you feared. And you can't feel fulfilled running away. Here's what the neuroscience says. A nervous system shaped by urgency gets a dopamine spike for finishing but almost none for arriving. So you hit a goal, and your brain instantly resets the finish line because the high wasn't satisfaction. It was the relief of being done. And relief isn't joy. Relief doesn't linger. Relief collapses. That's why you don't celebrate your wins. You downplay your success. You feel uncomfortable with praise. You move the goalposts immediately. You feel empty when things go well. You think, I should be happier than this. You keep asking why achievements feel hollow. Here's the answer. You were trained to chase outcomes, not because they lit you up, but because they kept you safe. Alan Watts captured this perfectly when he said, "You can't ever get enough of what you don't really want. You achieved the things you were supposed to want, not the things your actual self desired. So of course it doesn't fill you. Of course it doesn't silence the urgency. Of course it doesn't feel like arrival, because the ladder you're climbing was never built for you in the first place. You're not ungrateful. You're not impossible to satisfy. You're not destined to feel empty. You're just running reward circuits that were wired for survival, not fulfillment. And until those circuits shift, achievement will always feel like a momentary exhale, never a home. If success feels like nothing, if milestones don't move you, if you feel behind, even after catching up, there's nothing wrong with you. Your nervous system is still measuring life by old survival patterns, and that's about to change. Here's the shift Alan Watts would want you to hear clearly. You don't feel behind because you're failing. You feel behind because you're out of sync with your own rhythm. Life was never meant to be lived like a staircase, one achievement after another, climbing toward some invisible arrival. That's the cultural myth, the linear myth, the productivity myth. But nature doesn't move in straight lines. It moves in patterns, rhythms, cycles, spirals, tides, expanding and contracting, rising and settling, becoming and being. Watt said that life is not a journey toward a destination, it's music. You don't listen to a song to get to the end. You listen to enjoy the unfolding. And that's where urgency betrays you. Because urgency tries to turn your life into a checklist, a competition, a race with markers that only exist in your imagination. But rhythm? Rhythm doesn't rush. Rhythm doesn't compare. Rhythm doesn't panic about timing. It simply returns to itself. You're not falling behind. You're falling out of harmony with your own tempo. You've been trying to match the speed of people who were never moving with you, trying to sync with timelines that were never meant for your nervous system, your personality, your biology, your path. Watts would tell you, you don't dance to arrive at the last step. You dance because the movement is the point. And when you finally understand that, your urgency softens. Not because life slows down, but because you stop resisting where you are. Your anxiety didn't come from having too little time. It came from trying to outrun the present, trying to get somewhere else before allowing yourself to be here. But here is the only place anything actually happens. You were never meant to match a universal pace. There is no universal pace. There is only the rhythm your life has been trying to return you to from the very beginning. And the moment you stop forcing yourself into a speed that isn't yours, something strange happens. Your breathing evens out, your chest unlocks, your thoughts slow without collapsing. Time stops feeling like a threat. The world stops racing past you. You finally feel yourself meeting your own life, because peace isn't born from slowing down, it's born from sinking back in. If urgency has been running your life, if the world feels too fast, if you've never felt caught up, it's not because you missed your moment. It's because your rhythm was drowned out by survival. And now, for the first time, you're learning to listen to it again. Here's the truth no one ever taught you. Your pace has never been the problem. Your pace has always been the map. Your slowness, the part of you that moves carefully, thoughtfully, deliberately, isn't laziness. It's intelligence. It's the part of your system that refuses to rush into harm again. Your urgency, that frantic edge, that fear of falling behind, isn't motivation. It's memory. It's your body remembering the cost of being unprepared. Your exhaustion, the heaviness you shame yourself for, isn't failure. It's data. It's your body telling you, I've been running too long. And your discomfort with rest, that guilt you feel when things finally slow down, that's not a character flaw. That's unprocessed grief. The grief of a child who never got to rest without consequence. Alan Watts said, "Muddy water clears when left alone." He meant, you do not fix chaos by pushing harder. You fix chaos by not disturbing the water. But urgency taught you the opposite. It taught you to stir and stir and stir, hoping clarity would appear if you just worked fast enough. Clarity never comes from speed. It comes from stillness. And that stillness, the one you've always feared, avoided, or misinterpreted, is the doorway you've been circling your entire life. Your pace isn't a sign you're falling behind. Your pace is a sign of where you're hurting, where you're tired, where you're protecting yourself, where you're ready to heal. When you move slowly, you're not failing. You're listening. When you can't force another step, you're not weak. You're done overriding your own limits. When your body begs for stillness, it's not sabotaging you. It's calling you home. Everything you think is wrong with your pace is the very thing that's trying to rebuild you. If your entire life feels like a tug of war between wanting to slow down and being terrified to, you are not broken. You're learning to trust a rhythm that trauma once interrupted. And that rhythm has been waiting for you to return. Here's where everything shifts, not in theory, but in practice. This is the part where you stop understanding the race and finally step out of it. Because changing your pace isn't intellectual. It's somatic. It's behavioral. It's learned at the speed of the body, not the speed of the mind. The first shift is deceptively simple. A moment each day where you don't interfere. Not meditation, not a ritual, not an exercise. Just 5 quiet seconds where you let the moment exist without correcting it. This is what Alan Watts meant by Wu Wei, effortless action, the art of not pushing the river. And it's strange how quickly the body softens when it realizes it doesn't have to perform every second it is awake. 5 seconds becomes 10. 10 becomes a minute. And slowly, the body begins to understand that stillness isn't punishment. It's permission. You also have to unlearn the timelines you inherited. Every time you whisper, "I'm behind," you are comparing yourself to a clock that was never designed for you. Most people don't realize that the milestones they chase, career by this age, family by this age, stability by this age, are inventions, fabrications, leftovers from someone else's fear passed down like an heirloom. So the next time that panic rises in your chest, ask yourself the question that frees you. Whose timeline am I trying to meet? You'll find the answer is almost always someone who didn't know how to live slowly and needed you to move fast to keep their world from shaking. To leave the race, you must also leave the identity built from pace. Your speed was never personality. It was performance, the strong one, the reliable one, the productive one, the one who handles everything so no one gets upset. You don't break that identity in a single leap. You dissolve it by choosing 1 moment a day to be imperfect on purpose, by letting a message wait until you actually have capacity, by doing one task slowly not efficiently, by pausing before you save, soothe, fix, or rush. Every time you choose slowness, your body learns the truth. Nothing terrible happens. No explosion follows. No love disappears. No crisis erupts. You are safe, even when you don't sprint. And when the urgency spiral hits, because it will, don't fight it. Don't shame it. Don't try to yank yourself out. Just name it. This is urgency, not reality. The moment you name it, you step outside the reflex and back into choice. Urgency only controls you when you mistake it for truth. The second you recognize it as a sensation, not a command, its power dissolves. This is the essence of non-striving. Not doing nothing, but doing without fighting yourself. Make a cup of tea without multitasking. Walk without trying to turn it into progress. Sit without translating it into resting productively. Let one moment exist without needing to become anything. This is the kind of simplicity that begins to heal a lifetime of rushing, because your original rhythm was never meant to be frantic. You lived slowly long before fear rewired you. This isn't learning a new way of being. It's remembering an ancient one. And the moment your nervous system realizes that the world does not collapse when you stop running, neither do you. If you've ever felt like slowing down was the same as falling apart, you weren't wrong. You were just early in the process. These practices don't fix urgency. They retrain the body to recognize that peace is not a threat. And once your nervous system learns that, the race ends on its own. Look at you now. After a lifetime of rushing through mornings, through years, through versions of yourself you never had time to meet, you're finally slowing enough to see the truth that urgency always hid from you. You were never behind. You were never late. You were never missing the deadline for your own becoming. You were living in a rhythm that wasn't yours, a pace carved by fear, defined by survival, reinforced by a world that worships speed more than sanity. But the race was never real. And you were never built for chasing. You were built for witnessing, for being, for inhabiting your life instead of sprinting through it. Alan Watts said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and obvious and simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. You don't have to chase your life anymore. You get to live it. And here's the moment, the real one, the one your nervous system has been waiting decades for. Your pace is not a flaw. Your slowness is not a failure. Your need to pause is not proof that you're falling behind. It's proof that you're finally coming home. Because healing doesn't happen when you speed up. It happens the moment you stop running long enough for your life to catch up to you. So breathe. Let the rest of the world rush if it wants to. Let timelines scream for attention. Let comparison pull at your ankles. You don't have to go with them. You get to choose your rhythm now. You get to choose presence over panic. You get to choose here over hurry. You are not late. You are right on time for your own life. And the moment you realize that, the race ends and something softer begins. A life that moves with you, not ahead of you. A self that doesn't disappear in the chase. A pace that finally feels like breathing. If you're ready to reclaim your time, your pace, your nervous system, and your life, say it with me. I am not behind. I am healing. And when the urgency returns, because it will, come back here, to this moment, to this reminder, to this truth that's been waiting for you. You were never meant to run. You were meant to live. Let's go.